The world shifted around, and we're finally back. With a whomp, I fell to the ground. Gwa! That's not a whomp. Somehow, I had fallen onto the sofa I rather enjoyed sitting on, and Club Prez had fallen on top of me. Well, this isn't the first girl that fell on top of you tonight. A strong, sweet smell enveloped us as she looked down at me. It was the overpowering fragrance of roasted honey and sweets with a hint of the forest. That smell was even stronger than usual, and it was coming from Club Prez. Not good. I was getting dizzy. Club Prez wouldn't get off of me. She hugged me tightly to her chest. My left arm was still bloody and useless, and even if I moved my right arm, I didn't know what to do with it. Club Prez's chest was pressed against my face, and the smell of that sweet, mind-numbing nightmare muddled my thoughts, making it hard for me to comprehend what was going on. Is this gonna be another instance of choosing between the bad ending, which will lead to a Yayoi H scene, or choosing the good ending, which will choosing the choice that will lead to the not bad ending, which will continue the story? What? I nodded without a sound. This practically put my face in her breast, but Club Prez either didn't care or didn't notice, because she said nothing. In fact, she hugged my head again.
恥ずかしいな。いや、なんていうの？悲劇のヒロインぶりたい私の望んだ夢とか、そんなマゾっぽい願望があんな形になっちゃうなんて。
You don't need to tell such obvious lies. At this rate, sometimes something bad was going to happen. I did my best to look apathetic. You know where that all came from, don't you? Even I could tell. I hadn't caught a glimpse into her desires. Those had been her memories. There was no logic behind it, but I knew that that was the case.
ずるいわよ。はあ、トルに恥ずかしいところ見られた。
I could tell that she was trying to make it sound like it wasn't a big deal. Just then, I realized what the source of the smell was. I could see a rose on her chest. Even though I could see it clearly, it was there like an illusion that couldn't be touched. It had started to wither a little, and there were a few brown spots, but unlike Saki's and mine, it wasn't red. But that overly sweet smell that wore at my mind was coming from it. You didn't think that it's okay to run away in a dream, as long as you're happy, right? You don't think that it's okay to run away in a dream as long as you're happy, right? That crying child. If that past would cease to exist.
どうかしら。今まで考えたこともなかったもの。泣いても呪っても諦めても、現実は変わらないし、過去も変えられないし、自分も自分のまま変わらない。そんなの当たり前のことじゃない？
Club Prez was still on my lap. Her face was a little higher up, so she'd look down at me.
だから、急に全部なかったことにして、幸せにしてあげるとか言われても、わけわかんないわよ。
The sweet smell crept into my nose and mouth as though it were a physical object.
だから、あんな夢はどっちともどうでもいい。楽しそうなのはわけわかんないし、楽しくないのは過ぎたことだわ。
In my mind, the image of the crying child from earlier overlapped with the smiling Club Prez that I saw before me. Be careful. She blinked in confusion. Fighting back something that felt akin to extreme drowsiness, I continued talking. Dreams can be kind and happy, but they're only kind and happy to the one having the dream. People dream alone. No matter what kind of dreams come true, no one else can or will become happy. So, even if you understand the dream...
けれど、他の人間に迷惑をかけている罪悪感すらもなければ、それはきっと幸せなんでしょうね。
Club Prez covered my mouth with a finger.
トールの言いたいことはそんなとこでしょ？ 大丈夫よ。今のところそんな気はないわ。もっとも、罪悪感すら感じなくなった後はわからないけど。
If you lose to a dream, you lose even the awareness that you might be hurting those around you. When that happens, of course, you're going to run away to something kind and happy. Keep your heart strong, so you won't lose. Otherwise,
私を誰だと思ってるの？トールも見たでしょ？辛いのには慣れっこなのよ。
Club Press chuckled as the smell of the flower on her chest grew stronger. Unable to help myself, I reached out to the nightmare flower. But as I thought, although it looked like it was there, I couldn't touch it.
どこ触ってるのよ。
Unable to stop my hands, I grabbed hold of Club Press's chest. The softness of her skin, not covered by cloth, made contact with my fingers. I couldn't grab hold of it. Were Alice's shears the only thing that could remove the flower? Even Club Press didn't want to immerse herself in a nightmare like that. If I could remove this flower then the nightmare would end. But it looked like I couldn't touch it, as I was now. I was surprised that there was still a part of me that could think that. My mind was mostly drunk on the softness of Club Press's chest. My fingers couldn't move. It was as though they were stuck there. No, I didn't want to move. I wanted to tear off her clothes and grab at her as much as I wanted. That thought gradually became stronger. Somewhere in my mind, I was still wondering why I felt this way, but I couldn't make it stop. Why did I do that? I don't understand, but the sweet smell.
トール、ふざけるのもそのくらいに。ちょっと、トール？
I was breathing hard. My right hand was still in Club Press's chest. I wanted to bury my face in her chest, but if I did that, then there would definitely be no turning back. I couldn't look at her in the face, but I could tell that she was troubled and confused. I should move away right now. But even though I thought that, I couldn't move my hand. This was like a dream. This was like a dream. But it wasn't a dream. What should I do? No, I already knew the answer, but...
もっと触りたいの？
She sounded more nervous than puzzled. I remained frozen, unable to even nod, and Club Press shifted around on my lap.
いや、足のとこに当たってるのに、今気づいたというか。
Well, that's... I was so taut in my pants that I couldn't even feel it. It had been pressing against Club Press's tights through my clothes. It was too late to try to hide it. I didn't know what would happen if I moved. I might end up really embarrassing myself.
さっきから様子がおかしかったのって、私のせいよね。
I finally noticed that Club Press's words felt the same as that sweet smell. Because of the scent from the flower, which was still white, my head felt like it was on fire. Unable to think right, I could only focus on Club Press on top of me. Then again, it wasn't like I could calm down just because I noticed that.
どうすればいい？
What do you mean? Club Press's breath brushed against my face. It had the same sweet smell.
いや、私のせいなら、どうにかした方がいいだろうし、このままだとトールも辛いし、まずいんじゃないのかなって。
Those words tugged at the last of my reasoning, almost to the breaking point. I kind of think this whole situation is dangerous.
けど、我慢してて、後でアリスとかサキちゃんが隙を見せたら、襲いかからない？
I wouldn't. There's no way I'd...
本当に？それが夢ならまだしも、現実でもしそうなったらどうするの？
Her words made me pause for a moment.
トールが、なんかの事情でサキちゃんをエッチな対象に見たくないのは知ってるけど、最近そうも言ってられないんじゃないの？
I couldn't deny it. if I encountered Saki in this state, and if she clung to me so defensively again, that really might be dangerous. In my silence, Club Prez gave a resigned smile.
誰も見てないし、どうせ夢の中なんだし。さすがに夢だからって、そう、人助けよね。
Club Prez put her hand over mine, which was still on her chest.
ある程度なら手伝ってあげるけど。
There was no reason to refuse. She was saying it was okay. Club Prez's body wavered in front of me. Her chest was before my eyes, and her body was on my lap, making my mind get even dizzier. There it is. I told you it was the same thing that was in Saki's dream. Alright? I ain't going down the bad route. Again, you know, just like last time. Now here's the interesting thing, right? Unlike with Saki's route, Saki's choice, I guess, the couldn't hold back choice doesn't lead to a bad ending in this time. It leads down Yoyoi's route, which I guess makes sense considering we were technically going down Saki's route through, you know, going through the common route. We were we were picking all of the choices that would lead down to Saki's route, and eventually we will venture off the beaten path and go down Maya's route, right? But that isn't the case here, because this will lead down to Yoyoi's route, which, as much as I like Yoyoi, and as much as this whole dream sequence has made me like her even more, it isn't her time. So unfortunately, I have to resist. Was it okay to continue like this? Was it really okay to get swept away because it was a dream? And after losing to this dizzying smell, and becoming unable to think clearly, I reached out to Club Prez's chest again. I moved the fingers to my other hand, still on her chest. The sound spilling from Club Prez's mouth made me want to push her down and rub her breasts as much as I wanted, but I focused on my hands. That white flower was in front of me, that white flower that Club Prez didn't seem to be able to see. I crushed it with all my might. Club Prez cried out with a heavy, laden voice. I focused my mind on touching it and imagined cutting the flower with Alice's shears. As I focused on those things, I found that I was able to touch the flower. But like that time with Saki, the flower was like a sharp blade to me. As though I was tightly grabbing a razor, my hands got all cut up and bloodied. Ow. The pain caused the numbness in my head to disappear all at once. The sweet smell dissipated, and the room was filled with the normal smell of black tea and the almost painful smell of the forest. I saved you, I think. It's hard to explain, but I pretty much ended the dream. If I plucked the nightmare flower, then this dream was over. Then again, though Club Prez's flower had grown, it hadn't turned red. It didn't look like it was about to spread any further. So all I did was hasten the end of it a little. But if I had waited any longer, I didn't know what I might have ended up doing.
それでもって、こんなにして、夢だからって痛くないわけじゃないでしょ?
Club Prez took hold of one of my bloody hands. Now that I looked at her more calmly, her face was redder than usual. That sweet smell might have been making Club Prez a little bolder too, not just me. As I was thinking that, she suddenly licked my fingers. I felt a thrilling sensation from my wounds, wholly different from pain. なんでこんな無茶したのよ? Being licked with my fingertips in her mouth, I felt a jolt crawl up my spine. Unable to stop her, I let her continue. Because, well, It was obviously abnormal, wasn't it? Our heads weren't clear at all.
まあ、そうだったんだけど。
If we lost that easily, there was no telling what would happen after this. And she licked not just my fingers, but the palm of my hand too. Far from being painful, it seemed to help the pain, so it was even harder to stop her.
それに、私とそんなことがしたくない。
If it were consensual, then I would love to, but I didn't want to lose to the dream. If I lost here, then I felt like I wouldn't be able to win when the time comes, and I would have to settle things. When the time comes and I have to settle things with Maya. Ouch! Compressed sank her teeth in the spot that wasn't cut. Then she moved her hand away from me, her mouth away from me, and looked at me unhappily. What was that for?
この状況で他の女のこと考えられたなんてショックよ。
She was on my lap. She was on my lap, and until a short while ago, I was grabbing her chest. It was easy to imagine that the thought of me thinking about another woman was a jab at her pride. I didn't say that right. It was easy to imagine that the thought of me thinking about another... She was on my lap, and until a short while ago, I'd been groping her chest. No, it's just... I felt like I might lose if I didn't... I'm sensitive to being licked. Do you know? You know?
弱いんだ。いいこと聞いたわ。
She's got the fucking 3 smile. She got the cat smile. With a grin, she licked the palm of my hand again. I couldn't say I didn't like the sensation that ran across my wounds. God damn it, why are we back here? Meanwhile, Saki and Alice they're still being chased. That's unfortunate.
こういうものがあるなら最初から用意してください。ごめん。
When Saki threw away the emptied rocket launcher, this really did turn into Resident fucking Evil. Like a bag with nothing in it. An indescribable feeling fell over Alice. Normally, Alice felt that even if she pulled out something like that, she wouldn't know how to use it. Was it strange to think like it? Was it strange to think like that? Alice hadn't just prepared a rocket launcher. There had also been a shotgun, a grenade launcher, and a submachine gun. Also weapons that you would find in Resident Evil. I say Resident Evil like, but I'm not saying a specific one because, you know, you're not gonna find all of those guns in every game. In the same game, I guess. Maybe Resident Evil 4. Saki used them easily and quickly scattering the approaching figures.
さきちゃん、こういう感じのゾンビとか出てくるゲームとか得意なの？いえ、ゲームはほとんどやりません。兄さんがやってるのを見たことはあるけど。
I see. So maybe she's able to use them because she just thinks of them on that level. Alice thought to herself when...
実際に撃ったことがあるのはさっき自分で出した拳銃程度ですから。
That is not a handgun. While Alice stood flabbergasted, Saki ran on ahead. As she'd said, Saki was pulling out knives and pistols on her own and used them quite adeptly. As a result, the monsters from this generic schoolhouse horror flick were being cleared out. But the biggest target had stopped moving without either of them doing anything.
二人とも無事だったのね。そろそろ迎えに行こうと思ってたんだけど。
Yeah, because the dream is over. In the nearby hallway with a broken window, there's a figure of a person being illuminated by the moonlight, far too bright for the city. Sitting on the shoulder of the still figure with the axe was Maya.
迎えに行って、私たちを助けにでも来てくれるつもりだったのかな。
Alice said with an edge in her voice.
ええ、怪我とかしてない？大丈夫？
Maya affirmed that immediately, with seemingly no ulterior motives beneath her voice. In fact, she even seemed worried.
おかげさまで。心配なんてして、今度は何を企んでるの？
何を言っているの？幸せな夢の案内役だもの。心配をするのは当たり前でしょ？
Maya jumped down, landing in the same on the same level they were on.
それに、私にとってもこの夢は予想外だったのよ。ほんと、ルーティがいきなりここまでできるだなんて驚いたわ。もしかしたら一番素質があるのは彼女なのかもしれないわ。
その弥生はどこに行ったの？トールの行き先も知ってるんじゃないの？
Alice took out her shears and made a snipping motion towards Maya. But Alice couldn't see the nightmare flower right now, so she doubted that she would be able to do anything with the shears. When she had been with Toru, she could practically feel its presence.
あら、アリスなら分かってるんじゃないかしら。この間だってきちんとサキちゃんたちをあの部屋に連れ戻していたじゃない。あの部屋？
Saki truly didn't remember the dream. In fact, she probably wouldn't remember this dream when she woke up either. After all, it was a dream. If you were able to remember them all, your mind would be exhausted, like Toru's. Maya giggled in front of them.
二人に何かしたの？
私は何も。いえ、ちょっとだけしたかしら。二人がほんの少しだけ素直になれるように素敵な香りを用意してあげたわ。
So, you know, they were either fucking on the couch or, nothing. And I don't know what the other outcome would be called. In response to the gleeful Maya, Saki started to say something, but she stopped herself.
この辺、何があったのかしらね。
Even though she'd been waving around a rocket launcher earlier, around Maya, Saki's manner changed, and she became like a small child.
そんなに心配なら、あのお部屋に戻ってごらんなさい。二人とももう帰ってるもの。
Still wearing a grin, Maya turned her back on them and started walking. As she passed him, she touched the still Axeman and he dissolved into a pile of vegetation.
ちょっと待って、戻るってどうやって？
頑張ってね。早く戻らないと、もう大変なことになっちゃうかも。
All you guys have to do is jump through the broken window. That's how Toru and Yuyoi made it back to the room.
大変なことって何？兄さんに何が起きるの？
Maya turned around and grinned.
それじゃあ、ごきげんよう。またいつか夢の舞台でお会いしましょう。
Well, you know, if we did go down Yoyoi's route, the something terrible thing would definitely have happened, but it would only be terrible to Saki, not so much Yoyoi or Toru. Without answering the question, Maya disappeared into the air. Oh, suddenly the doors of the room opened violently. Club Press jumped, clearly surprised at the sound.
兄さん、無事？あら？
So, like, what are they doing, and why is Yoyoi's face so close to Toru's, I guess? Club Press, that hurts. My hand. My left hand was being wrapped in a bandage. Thanks to that, the bleeding had stopped, but at this rate, it seemed like I would get a different injury.
なんともなかったの？
Nothing ever happens, except when I choose the option that something happens. What do you mean? My quick answer garnered a sharp scowl from Misaki.
ねえ、兄さん、何があったの？
I'm sure if I went down Yoyoi's route, they would have fucked and finished before they got here. They as in Saki and Alice. I can't tell you, Saki. Rather than telling the lie, I stood fast.
どうしてよ。
Because it was Club Prez's bad dream. Like how we saw your dream the other night. I ended up seeing hers too. I couldn't tell Saki about that.
よしよし。そういうわけだから、ごめんね、さきちゃん。
It wasn't entirely unexpected, but Club Prez, we actually pretty good at wrapping up my hand. Was pretty good at wrapping up my hand. Sure. She had taken some sort of ointment out of her pocket and put it on me, so thanks to that, my pain was almost completely gone. Saki looked unconvinced, but apparently she decided not to get into it right here and now. And what had happened after that? Well, there was no reason to tell Saki about that. Or so I thought.
トールってば、二人きりになった途端、どうせ夢だろって言って、私を押し倒して無理やり。
In no time, I felt something fly past the hair next to my ear. It wasn't until I saw the smoke rising from the muzzle that I realized that it was from the gun Saki was holding. Okay, even from this angle, the barrel of the gun shrinks at the end. Her expression was as cold as the snow woman's, and I felt like it would freeze me to my core.
へえ、兄さんってばそんなことをしたの。
私がこんな格好だからって、そんな見境なしに。
Saki started to squeeze the trigger. I thought I was about dead when.
で、それ本当なの？
うん、作り話よ。
Saki looked over at Club Prez and stopped. My heart was still racing. I really thought I was going to die if Saki shot me right now, and that tension and fear was still surging through my veins.
わかりにくい冗談言うのやめてもらえますか？
She didn't even say something that led to a misunderstanding. She just said I made it all up.
そんなこと言われても、さきちゃんに信じてもらえないようなことをしてきたトールが悪いんじゃないの？
Saki looked away from me with a pouty face. Even as Alice sighed, she was staring at Club Prez's chest.
あら何？もしかしてアリスってそっちの趣味だったりするの？
Club Prez covered her chest with her hands. She looked like she was half seriously on guard.
違います。私はその辺ノーマルです。そうじゃなくて、さっきのあれ、弥生さんの夢だったんでしょ？悪い夢の花が咲いてるかもって思ったんだけど、トールがどうにかしたの？というか、できたの？
Alice brought out her shears. No, it just withered on its own. I had seen a flower on Club Prez's chest, but when everything was over, the stem and leaves had disappeared. But Club Prez still has that smell. The sweet smell of a nightmare. It lingered even though the flower had disappeared.
匂いって、何？そういうのが好きなの？
No, you know what I mean, don't you? And why was Saki sneakily checking her own scent? Those nightmare flowers, or whatever, they have a really strong smell, right? Like something sweet. I thought for sure everyone else had noticed it, but they all tilted their heads.
甘いって、どんな匂いがするの？
A really strong sweet smell, like honey or pastries, right? Is it just me? Everyone nodded. Apparently I was the only one who could smell it. Well, they are flowers that are created by Maya, and Maya is the reason why you're in this room. So, you know, there is a pretty obvious connection, and that's probably why you're the only one who can smell the flowers.
その匂いが、まだ弥生からするって言うんだ。
Yeah, at the time you cut Saki's flower off with your shears, the smell almost completely went away, but though it was faint, I could still smell that scent on Club Prez.
そんなこと言って、私の匂いを嗅ぎたいの？そういうのって言い訳とかされない方がいいんだけど。
その辺面倒だから無視するけど、それは多分、きちんとあの花を摘み取れなかったんだと思うわ。
うわ、順の早いわね。もうちょっと構ってくれてもよくないかしら。
If I did, I'd get shot by Saki, so no thanks. So Alice, you're saying I wasn't able to remove it?
いや、だから単に種の状態に戻って眠ってるんじゃない？増えなかったけど、減りもしなかったとか。
So it wouldn't be strange for it to grow again at any time? With Saki, the flower was removed properly, so it probably wouldn't grow again easily. But with Club Prez, I had just sort of scattered the flower, so there was no telling when it would sprout again.
なるほど。ということは、やり残したことがまたできるのかしら。
何ですか？やり残したことって。
ホラーものって言ったら、シャワーシーンじゃない。ほら、大事なところは映さないで、やたらと肩とか背中をアップにした。
Can't you dig the scene out with your shears or something?
やよ、そんなスプラッター。ホラー映画じゃあるまいし。ほら、先輩。まだ他のホラー需要が残ってましたよ。胸元も開いてるし、いいんじゃないですか？ノーサンキュー！
サキちゃんってほんと、トール以外にはスパルタだわ。
Club Prez looked really discouraged. I wanted to do something about Saki only being soft with me, or rather, about her being hard on everyone else.
だけど、弥生さんはトールに夢を見られてるって気づいたんだ。サキちゃんもその夢の時には気づいてたんだっけ？よく覚えていません。そっか。もしかして、トールが見たって話した？
I did, but it seemed like she was really aware. She was already aware.
嫌な夢見てた時にトールの声がしたのよ。その時に気づいちゃったの。ほんと助かったわ。トールが呼んでくれなかったら、まだあの嫌な夢が続いてたかもしれないもの。
That dream probably would have overwritten things, so that even the days Club Prez spent with us were spent all alone. It took a long time to get to that point, but I'm glad you were saved in the end.
まあ、そこまでのことは実際にあったことだし、今更かしら。そうじゃなかったことまであんな風にされたらたまらなかったけど。
Then Club Prez added,
あれは最後だけど、実は最初というか。
何その全問答みたいなよくわからない答えは。
Yeah, especially when you're wearing something like that. At that point, Club Prez gave me a wry smile.
まあまあ。だからね、トール。さっきのは助けてくれたお礼ってことで。
Remembering what had just happened, my eyes drifted to her mouth and chest before I averted them. I got the feeling she was grinning upon seeing me like that.
トール。イチャイチャするなら状況考えないと。
Yeah, specifically when Saki isn't here. By the time I realized, it was too late. Saki had taken out her gun again and was pointing it at me. Is this going to be a regular sprite now? A regular sprite in the dream?
本当に、先輩が助かってよかったですね、兄さん。
Before I could say anything, I heard Saki's gentle voice. It was as pretty as a flower mid-bloom. Smiling nervously, Alice took a few steps back as she tried to contain her fear.
じゃあ次はサキちゃんとイチャイチャしちゃおうかしら。
Club Prez went around behind Saki like Maya had and ran her hands along Saki's body.
ちょっと、弥生先輩。
あら、可愛い声出しちゃって。これからもいろいろありそうだし、仲良くしましょうよ。
これからもって、やっぱりそうなのかな。
I mean, it was already weird enough when Saki showed up again in the dream, but if it was because it correlates with Yayoi showing up in the dream, then I guess we'll only see them again when Keiko shows up? Or is this really going to become a regular thing where Yayoi and Saki are going to become regular guests in this dream space? If it's the same as Saki, then Club Prez will start showing up to the tea party. Like, I mean, you know, I did get spoiled on. I saw one of the dream scenes, the title scenes, right? And of course, they were in this room when it occurred, right? In the dream outfit. Saki let out a strange questioning sound as Club Press toyed with her. We'd been invited to a dream from the tea party, and she was someone close to me. Since Club Press also fulfilled these conditions, there was a good chance she would come to the room when she slept. Club Press must have realized that too, or maybe she instinctively felt it, because she nodded next to me.
じゃあ、そういうことで。
Alice and Saki looked bewildered. They were probably trying to figure out if this was a good thing or a bad thing. In contrast to Club Prez's carefree attitude, the fact that I had gotten her involved weighed heavily on me. Really felt like I had to do something about it. Interlude 2. I'm reading that off the top of the thing. The title bar, the window, the top bar of the window. I dreamt again today. Maya and I were sitting at the table. Everything was laid out as usual. I'd gotten used to coming here, but just because I had gotten used to it didn't mean that I wanted to be here. Maya had her elbows on the table as she peered at me sipping my tea as usual.
どうしたのかしら。今日はなんだかずいぶんご機嫌斜めみたいだけど。
Have I ever been in a good mood here?
ええ、あるわよ。他の女の子と話しているときはいつも楽しそうだわ。
Yeah, you got a problem with that? With a brisk skip and with a brisk quick hop, Maya leapt over the table and into my lap.
なのに私と一緒のときはなんだかいつもムスッとしているんだもの。
You know the reason, don't you?
ええ、そうやって艶がってるのもとっても素敵よ。
That doesn't make me happy at all. And get off of me.
いやよ。
Refusing bluntly, Maya grinned from her usual place on my lap. I could have pushed her off, but if I was capable of lifting a hand against her, then I wouldn't be having these problems in the first place. Ultimately, all I could do was sit and drink with a sour look on my face.
本当になんでそんなに不満そうなの？もっと楽しそうにしていればいいのに。
Why are you showing dreams like that to people other than the person whose dream it is? I meant Saki's and Club Prez's dream. No, not their dreams. Their desires. Their pasts that didn't need to be seen. By me. Why was she dragging that stuff out?
それは。
You were saying that you weren't the one showing the dreams, right?
ええ、そうよ。私は舞台を整えるだけなのよ。
I put my teacup on the table and paused. Then who's showing them? I asked as I stared straight into Maya's eyes, but she just giggled and wrapped her hands around my neck.
知りたい？だけど、やっぱりダメだわ。前も言ったじゃない。私はそんな話をしたいわけじゃないの。
And don't look at me like that. She pressed her index finger against my lips, as she had done before. She didn't push hard, she just touched my lips, but I became unable to open my mouth.
私だって心配なのよ。このままで大丈夫なのかって。
She must have heard me thinking, what do you mean?
だって、いつまで経っても妹離れできてないんですもの。知ってる？妹とはずっと一緒にいられるけれど、結婚はできないのよ。
I know that. Maya removed her finger and I was finally able to speak again. But that has nothing to do with you or me anymore, does it?
ならそうかしら。本当に本気でそう思ってるの？
Of course I do. Because Maya was no longer with us. No matter what I did, I would never see her anywhere but here, so I had nothing to do with her.
私が大好きだって思うみたいに私のことを大好きみたいだから心配してたけど。
Maya's fingers traced my cheeks, her cheek, sending a chill through me.
そこまで言うなら、私以外の女の人も誰か気になったりしてるんじゃないかしら？
Didn't we talk about that before?
女の子ってそういう話が大好きなのよ。それに、大事なことだもの。誰に任せればいいか考えなくちゃ。
Mind your own business. Though that was my reply. When I asked who I was interested in, I suddenly thought of... Wow, who would have guessed that this is the fucking thing that they were going to show? I'm interested in Alice, Saki, Yayoi. I didn't think of anyone. Okay. Is this the time where it actually... how do I say this? Because, you know, obviously, with how I do these kinds of games, I go down the route of Dexter's waifu, right, at first. And I'm not sure if this is interesting. I just saw. So that is fucking weird. So actually, okay, let me clarify something. So with how the walkthrough has been structured, it's essentially like you're going through Saki's route, right? With every, I guess, neutral option will lead you closer to Saki's route until, I guess, here. And of course, with each of these choices, some of them will lead down different routes, obviously. And that's what these save slots are for. And it tells you in the guide which save slot it would be. For some reason, the Saki route part does not have save slot 5. It is in the Yayoi part. Right? And to get, or I guess to essentially start Maya's, it is an option that you get from save slot 6, which is an option you get from, I guess, Alice's route through the second save slot. I don't know if this is making any sense, but essentially, with how I've done this, right? You know, with how I'm trying to get all of the save slots, essentially, right, from 1 to 6, I've technically locked myself out of Maya's route. And honestly, you know, obviously that doesn't line up with how I've structured these sorts of games before, right? But I'm not opposed to it. you know, because of how this game has been, I'm not going to say structured, but it's kind of leading you down Saki's route, right? It kind of, I'm not going to say it feels like the common route kind of lines up the most with Saki's, especially with the kinds of options I'm going through, but she does have the most options, right? The most choices, and excluding Alice, because she has 2 endings. But you know, we don't have to worry about that until the end of the game, because while Alice has 2 endings, the way you get the second one is by starting from the beginning, interestingly enough. But it reminds me of Irosekai, where to get Shinku's route you had to essentially click a new game, but I don't think that's what they're doing here, because the first option in Saki N2 is the same one that is here, right? The this isn't me into, or you know, where you can choose this isn't me, or you can get a bad ending by accepting the fucking the H scene. But essentially this is a whole fucking long-winded thing to essentially say, if my main goal was to, you know, fucking go down Maya's route first, I kind of fucked up. By, you know, when I'm already too many options away from the option that would lead me down Maya's route, right? I would have had to pick I don't instead of, you could say I do, in save slot 2. But with that being said, I guess we will continue down Saki's. That's yeah. All to say, I'm probably going to go down Saki's route. Just then, I suddenly thought of Saki, the girl closest to me, who was always at my side. When asked if I was interested in anyone, her face was the first I remembered.
いるみたいね。それも私の予想通りの相手かしら。
This doesn't lock me into her route, right? There are still options. There are still a few options that I need to go through before I actually, you know, get there. But I think this is one of those options that will diverge the story, if not a little. It just maybe a little. Could be. I answered bluntly, but Maya smiled, seemingly unable to contain how much fun she was having.
だけどそれなら安心だわ。変に意地を張ってそのまま何もなかったら困るものね。
I wasn't lying so that Maya could feel relieved. I almost said that, but I suddenly wondered if it was true.
そのつもりなら何の問題もないわ。ええ、本当に。これならもしかしたらうまくいくかもしれないもの。
What do you mean? Things going the way Maya wanted. The thought of what if made me anxious.
大丈夫よ。知らなくてもいいことだし、それにそのうちわかることだもの。
If I'll understand eventually, then why don't you just tell me?
いやよ。そんなこともわからない相手に教えてあげる必要はないの。
Giggling, Maya tapped the floor with her toe. Gradually, the world peeled away and Maya melted away, like she always did. Hey, Maya.
それじゃあ、またね。元気でいてね。そうでないと困るから。
Even her voice melted away. Maya. Bright light again. I fell into the scenery, which was flipping like the pages of a book. For a moment, I saw a bright blue world. Hearing the sound of the doors closing behind me, I fell to my knees on the floor and sat there.
兄さん?
Well, I thought Alice would be here, but I guess not. My legs were shaky and I couldn't stand well. I felt like a traveler having collapsed after going through the desert. Through sheer willpower, I managed to sit up without having to use my hands to prop myself. Having ended the long, long dream and returned here. Yeah, okay. I saw that Saki and Club Prez were visiting the room. They were surprised at seeing me come in after them and almost collapse.
ちょっと、どうしたの？何があったの？
Saki put down the cup of black tea she'd been holding, and stood up in a panic. I couldn't stay crouching here. The moment I put all my energy into my legs and tried to stand up, the doors behind me cracked open.
私も、もう、ダメ。
I thought only Toru would have this feeling. Alice came in through the doors and collapsed. I looked back, but it was too late. Alice was just as worn out as me. I had no energy, so when she fell on me, I collapsed even further. I had no will to get up anymore, so I put my arms around Alice on the floor. Next thing I knew, Club Prez and Saki were taking care of us, and I somehow made it to the sofa. Like always, my back was leaning against the armrest. Alice laid with her head, resting on my legs, and her own legs on the other armrest. Neither of us had the strength to move, so we just laid there limply.
さきちゃん、お兄ちゃんが他の女に膝枕してるけど、いいの？
弥生先輩は、私が死人に鞭を打つような女だと思ってるんですか？
Alice was lying where Saki normally sat. Saki looked down at us as she stood beside us.
それで兄さん、何があったの？
You can probably already guess, but we got caught up in an awful dream. I returned to this room right after meeting Maya. Alice was there all of a sudden, and she was acting like normal. Then we started talking about this dream, this curious dream where other people kept getting involved. We decided to go search for the source, and we thought we might be able to encounter the culprit behind it beyond the doors.
そこまでなるなんて、どんな夢見たのよ。
Yeah, and why haven't we been able to see it? Why didn't we get to see it?
海を越えて、山を越えて、砂漠も行ったよね。
Our ship sank in the ocean, our plane crashed in the mountains, and our spaceship made an emergency landing in the desert. What? Spaceship? We were unable to reach our destination, and each of our adventures would have been enough to fill a movie. Okay, and visual novels take like multiple movie lengths to finish. Sure, that's one way to say it. To be honest, if Alice and I weren't so good at altering dreams to our convenience, we would probably still be wandering through that dream.
なんでそんな夢を見てたのよ。
We set out after talking about going to search for the source of this dream.
それで何か収穫はあったのかしら？
Am I only going to be able to see this in Alice's route? Or if I go down Alice's route? I hung my head at that question. Like, maybe not first ending, but the true ending. That's what the guide said it was. Alice was awake too, but she looked away from Club Prez without saying anything.
本当に二人とも何してるんですか？
あら、もしかしてさきちゃん、やっぱり焼いてるの？
For some reason, Saki glared at me in response to Club Prez's quip.
焼いてるとかじゃなくて、どうして兄さんはアリスさんとばかりそういう無茶をするんですか？
だってそれはアリスが一番頼れるからじゃないの？変なことに巻き込まれても大抵のことなら自力で何とかできるし。
いや、あれ、二人とも覚えてないの？
Alice slowly sat up, apparently having no intention of lying there forever. She reached out and started preparing her own tea.
覚えてないのって何のことですか？だってこの間、トールとサキちゃんでひどい夢見たってボロボロになって帰ってきたじゃない。それ、もしかして弥生先輩が来る前に見た後に見た夢のことですか？
Saki's voice grew hostile, though she had the wrong idea. It was a subject that she didn't want to touch on. Oh, wait, Saki, that's not it. Alice isn't talking about that dream. Just the other day, you and I went out alone. But Alice, it looks like Saki doesn't remember that dream.
覚えてないって何かあったの？
Same sort of thing. You said we should find the source, so we could figure out what kind of place this was. So I forced the doors open, and we went to a different dream. But when we woke up, Saki didn't seem to remember, so I kept silent, thinking there was no reason to go and remind her.
兄さん、一応聞いておくけど、どんな夢だったの？
It was like we were in a western, in a western, where we had to catch and sell horses.
まあ、どうして二人がそんなことしてるかはともかくとして、夢としては意外と普通の夢ね。
But there was a disease that was spreading around the town we were using as a base. People were turning into zombies, and we had to run around in order to survive. Excuse me? This sounds like a pretty normal dream. Just remembering it made me sigh. Saki was on guns, and I was running away on the horses while carrying Saki. It was an endless sort of dream. After a while, Alice eventually pulled us out. Just like today, I collapsed right as I came through the door.
この間も弥生、同じこと聞いてたよね。
何それ？それって私も覚えてないってこと？
I nodded from where I still sat on the sofa.
どっちも全く覚えがないわ。
Okay, I understand that Yayoi and Saki won't remember the dreams, but why am I not allowed to see them? Is it not within the budget of the game to have these different backgrounds of, a desert, an ocean, the mountains, a western town, whatever dream Yayoi and Toru went through? Yeah, you didn't seem to, so I didn't say anything. There was no need for her to remember something so painful, and in true dream fashion, it wasn't something that would be useful, even if she did remember it.
私も、もしかしてそんなことあった？
The other day, you said the same thing and jumped out with Alice. Both of you were staggering when you came back. Club Press froze.
全然覚えてないんだけど。私、何か言ってた？
All I heard was something about you two being in an idol unit, but we're rivals and we're having a hard time. Okay, well, for that time, that makes sense because Toru didn't experience that dream. It seemed to have been embarrassing for Alice too, since she wouldn't tell me the details. When I asked, she grew bashful and angry. Seemingly shocked that she couldn't remember, Club Press munched on cookies from the table and prepped some more black tea. She swallowed a mouthful and calmed down.
トールも飲むかしら？
Yeah, thanks. With her acting that way, I couldn't tell whether she remembered or not. Maybe she remembers the feeling of what happened in that dream, but not what actually happened.
なんで私たちは覚えてないのかしら？
That's how it is with dreams. In fact, I could say Alice and I were strained for being able to remember. Besides, if you remember all your dreams, then you'll just be tired every day.
トールが言うと説得力あるわね。
That's because I'm a living example. But Saki looked unconvinced.
どうしたの、さきちゃん。トールの言う通り、覚えてないならそれでいいと思うんだけど。だけど、もしかしたらなんですけど、ここに私は本当に来てるのかなと思って。ごめん。私、頭そんな良くないから、言ってる意味がわかんないんだけど。兄さんとアリスさんは夢のことを全部覚えてるじゃないですか。けど、私と弥生先輩は全部きちんと覚えてるわけじゃない。それって、ここにいる私たちが目を覚ましてる時の私たちとは、もしかしたら違うことになるのかなって。
Well, you two are wearing clothes that you would not wear in the real world, so, you know.
じゃあ、今ここで目の前にいるさきちゃんは誰なの？兄さんの見てる夢とか。
だとしたら、トールってば夢の中でも疑り深いのね。
It's possible, but there's no way to check until we wake up.
起きられれば、ここにいる弥生とさきちゃんが本人だってわかるの？起きた後なのに？
Couldn't I just have them tell me something I don't know, and then check it later? Like, what they ate last night or something? Alice nodded understandingly.
青色で横は紐。フロントサイドにリボンがついてるのよ。
Saki suddenly said something like an incantation.
上もそれに合わせてあるけど、こっちは形を言っても兄さんにはわからないわよね。
What are you talking about?
明日、私が着る下着よ。
Okay, listen, I understand that I'm locking myself into your route, but that doesn't mean you can immediately start talking about the underwear that you're going to wear. Never mind. It came a laugh, not from me, but from Alice next to me.
さきちゃん、よりによってなんでそこなの？起きたら確認してもらえる？それで違ってたら、きっとここにいる私は本物じゃないから。トール、確認するの？
I mean, she gave me permission, so I don't see why not. Even though... here's the thing, right? So, Dream Saki is giving Toru permission to check her panties, but Saki isn't going to remember that after she wakes up. So, even in the instance where this is the real Saki, right, and she will wear those panties, you know, will Toru still be able to check them consensually? Alice gave me a look that said she really wanted to say something. What? Don't look at me like that. As I grew frustrated, Saki just drank her tea as if she were saying it would be fine.
なるほどなるほど。じゃあ私も同じようなことを教えておけばいいのかしら。
No, you can't do that, Club Prez, I mean Yayoi, because Saki would get jealous. How am I supposed to check that?
こう、誰も見てない時にチラッと
These poses are very suspicious. Alright, there's fucking one wrong move and she'll be, you know, one of those will pop off. You're really going to show me tomorrow?
なんだか私の時と反応が違う気がするんだけど。
Don't worry, Saki. Like I said, I've already locked myself into your route, so you don't need to be jealous of Yayoi. She'll be another time, but right now it's you. Saki narrowed her gaze and glared at me. It wasn't a matter of wanting to see either Saki's underwear or Club Prez's underwear, or having more interest in one than the other. Wait, you wouldn't normally show me that. Let's think of some other way to check.
なんかあんなに嫌がられると傷つかない。
ええ、その気持ちはすごくよくわかります。
You won't have to you won't have to feel that for very long. For much longer, Saki. Saki is one thing, but are you really okay with this, Club Prez?
さきちゃんのは見ようと思えば見られるみたいな言い方だよね。それ。
I mean, probably. Blushing slightly, Alice moved to the opposite end of the sofa, and putting some distance between us.
兄さんが見たいって言えば、いつでも見せてあげるけど。
妹の下着姿が見たいって言うと結構問題じゃない？
Did I say a single thing about that? But if I said I didn't want to see them, both Saki and Club Prez would get sulky, and the worst thing was, Saki wasn't technically my sister, so it wasn't like I wasn't interested.
トールのエッジ。
I mean, listen, Alice. It wouldn't be fair for me to only see your panties. So, I should see the rest of the girls' panties, right? Keiko and Maya included. I would accept that remark if I were the one who started the conversation down this path. But unable to understand why this had happened, I heaved a sigh and rested my tired body on the sofa.